All right. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this month's webinar, where we're going to discuss the new schedule of values and project invoicing in Concrete Vision. Just a reminder, this will be posted within a week at the latest to our YouTube channel after we have finished the meeting, recorded it, and edited the webinar. Today, you have me, Brent Willson, the PM for Concrete Vision, and you will have as well Dan VanWieren, our president, will be presenting the new stuff. So I will hand off to Dan and let him go ahead and begin. If you want to run through the agenda, then you can share your screen, Dan.
Okay. Thank you. Again, my name is Dan VanWieren, president of Concrete Vision. Today on the agenda, we're going to run through the setting up of the schedule of values template, how to add a schedule of value to a project, modify a schedule of value once it's been added to a project, add monthly billings to the schedule of values, and then also how you can print out payment applications, invoices, and then also touch on if you're estimating within Concrete Vision or have budgets within Concrete Vision, how those numbers can automatically fill into your schedule of values. The items that we're going to be going through today are going to be found off the accounting menu, the schedule of values template, and the project invoicing. The first thing is the schedule of values template. This is where you can go in and set up what are your defaults for your schedule of values. Do you break it down by draft, engineering services, production, trucking, erection, field finish, tax, bond? This is just the template that would then be copied into each of the projects. From there, you would then be able to delete or add additional items. This is just your starting point. Over here on the right-hand side, the change order column is set up so that if you do have change orders on your schedule of values, you would check that box, and then that will separate them out on the schedule of values for you so that it's easier to track the original contract price plus change orders. The next two columns are dealing with retainage and whether or not items should be excluded if you do have retainage on a specific project. So if this is checked, then retainage would not apply to those line items on the schedule of values. To add a new one, you would just come in here, put in a code. It's an alphanumeric field up to 10 characters. And so I'm going to just go in and set up change orders and say I have a change order 1. And it would not have retainage and it's a change order. And so when I hit apply, then that would just automatically drop down here. And now when I go and add this to the project, then this would always automatically show up in there as well. To remove anything, you would just click on the X here, and then that would remove it out of the template. That does not change any existing schedule of value that is on a project if you remove them from this screen. So this is just your default copy, what you're copying in from the starting point. Excuse me. Next, underneath project invoicing, this is going to open up and give you a list by default of all of your active projects. Underneath the filter, you can then select if you're looking for certain items based on a job name, number, based on a status, if you're only looking for jobs within a specific status. Project managers would be able to go in and filter based on a specific project manager. So they would only see the projects that they're working on. You can also filter based on whether or not you've created invoices for a project. So you'd be able to see, if you're working on, a half a dozen current jobs right now, if you clicked on has invoices, it would only show you the projects where you've created at least one of the billings for your schedule of value. The different columns on here, again, just like within Concrete Vision, you can always sort based on the different column headings. Over here, invoice day, that would represent, what is the day of the month that the invoices are due for that specific project. And then over here, it's going to show you what is the contract value, which is pulled in from the contracts tab off a project. Any change orders, and then the total contract amount. On the far right-hand column is the total schedule of values. If it's in red, that just means that it is not, there hasn't been one set up, or you have one set up, but the amount doesn't equal what is the total contract for that project. So you'd be able to easily see if something's been changed and the schedule of value is not in sync with the contract. Underneath the action buttons, the first one is just the edit button. That'll just bring you into the job screen that everybody's familiar with. The contract tab, this is where a lot of the information is shared with the schedule of values, especially underneath the contract information area. Contract number, contract value, the invoice address, retention rates, that type of stuff. And so you can make changes on this screen here, or if you're on the project invoicing tab, you can click directly on edit project contact info, contract info, and it's going to bring you to a page just for all of those values pertaining to the schedule of values. So if you change anything here, it will then show up over on the job screen as well. So if this project was typed in wrong, it was 27,500, I can change that here. And then the next time somebody loads this screen, it'll show that change over on the contract tab. The plus sign is how you would actually add a schedule of value to a project. We have set up the system so that you can have multiple schedule of values. So if you have to invoice your engineering services underneath a different contract or to a different organization, you can set up two different schedule of values. For this one here, if I just click the add button, it's going to come in. You can just put in a title. I'm going to just put in that it's the first one. And then you can also set retention rates, whether or not you have to use a G732 versus a G702. You can also put in the contract number or the job number from the general contractor. And then also a field for additional notes for that contract. The invoice address, you can default it to a project contact. So if I select my general contractor, it's going to automatically pull that from the jobs module where that's been defined as the general contractor. And then when I save this, it just brings me back to this screen here. It's still showing in red because I haven't set up the schedule of values yet. So when I go in and edit the project invoice, currently it's just a blank screen. And so we come up here, hit create. And then what that'll do is copy in all of those template line items that we had set up over on our template. If you don't need these ones, this is where you'd be able to just come in and say, I don't need that. I don't need that. We're not doing field erecting, and there's no tax. So there's only going to be 3 items for my schedule of values. The dollar amounts, depending upon if you do budgeting, if you create budgets within Concrete Vision, would start at 0. So to edit these amounts, you would just click on the pencil icon. And then from here, you would be able to then go in and put in what are your the different amounts for the project. So if I say and then again, from here, you can also say whether or not it's a change order line item, whether or not to include or exclude retainage if you have anything. Once you have that, you can just hit save and close. It'll come back to here. And now it's going to show you your totals for each of the line items. And then up here, it's going to show you your contract values and then the total schedule of values like it did on the front page. If you need to, if you have to back up and just start over, you can just click on the recreate button, and that basically is going to delete everything on this page and let you start over. So you do want to be kind of careful with that, because obviously if you have 3 or 4 billings, if you hit recreate, it will, delete out everything that you've done to this point on that schedule of value. To add a monthly invoice to the schedule of value, you would click on add billing. In here, you can select who's going to sign it. What is the invoice number? This is going to be the first invoice. Application number. Typically, these are always the same, but they don't have to be. The application date. So I'm going to back this up and just say that this is the one that we're doing for April. And so my period would be April 1 through April 30. I'm going to say that during that month, we did our engineering services, but we didn't do anything else. And so I can just hit the save and close, and then it's going to automatically create this box here, which will show you the invoice number, the period, which work was completed, total, and then over here at the far right is a running total of all of your different individual billings. The pencil icon will let you then go back in and edit that billing. From here, like a lot of our other screens, there's a notes tab. So you can add notes as you're producing this, And just like anywhere else in Concrete Vision, when you add a note, it automatically adds the date, time, and only the creator can then go in and edit that note. We've added the attachments tab. And so if you have any type of documents that you need to go along with this specific billing, you can add those to here. There's an email log that'll show you, when you've emailed this out from the system. And then there's also an audit log. And so this is going to show you whenever anything is changed. So if I came in here and put in, change that field, then when I go to the audit screen, it's going to show that I changed that field from the old value to the new value. So you have an audit log of any value that's been modified once it's been created for a audit log. Up in the top, once you are done with the entering in your values, there's several different reports. We have the equivalent of a excuse me, sorry. We have the equivalent of a G703 payment application and a continuation sheet. And so this is going to open up. It'll just put the G703. It'll copy all your information into here. It's in the same format as an AIA G703. This is not a official AIA document, but this can be printed directly out of the system and submitted if it's acceptable by your general contractor. And so this is going to follow the exact same format for the G703, your schedule of value, any previous, this period, total, balance. Again, it just follows the industry standard AIA G703 document. We also have a G702 document. If you upload a signature in Concrete Vision, it would show up under here. And so I can select my name here. And when I print the G702 document, this is going to, again, pull in, show you the standard format that we're following from AIA, the GC project, who it's from. This would automatically fill in with your company information. And then down here on the left-hand side is, the standard fields, contract value, change orders, retention, total amount due, balance to finish. And then on the left-hand side, it would automatically include that digital signature, and then it'll put the date. And the date that it's going to follow is whatever date you put in here for the application date. That will automatically fill in here. The third document is a standard invoice that can be created for this payment application billing. And this is going to pull up and show you, company letterhead, when the period's ending, what is the project, who is it going to, who is it from. Again, up here, your invoice number, application number, and then down below it's relatively the same as your combination of the G702, G703 document, where we're showing the schedule of values, line items, completion to date value, previous invoice column, this invoice, remaining unbilled, and then the totals down here. The combined button, this will basically just print all three of these into a single combined PDF document for you. So you'll have the invoice, your continuation sheet, and then the application for payment. So that puts it all into one single PDF. The email button, what that will do is we'll open up our email window. It'll default to the address of the contractor. You can also add additional people into here based on if they're located in our CRM or not. It'll also automatically attach the 3 documents, individual PDF documents, to the email for you automatically. And then also, submit it with the invoice number for whatever project. And then the default information down here, as far as, the invoice totals, who's it's all going to and stuff like that. So it makes it very simple to send the information right from within Concrete Vision. When you do send it from within here, if you go to the email tab, this is going to show you a record of the email that was sent, the subject, and then you'd be able to open this up and view the detailed information for the email that was sent. So you have an audit of when it was sent and when, if people call and say they didn't receive it. The notary signature, we have added that recently as well. Depending upon whatever states allow, some states allow the electronic notaries, some don't. If you are allowed to do that, you can attach that notary signature to your contact record. So if you go into the CRM, edit your contact record, and on the other tab, there's a spot to upload your signature and then also your notary signature file for your user record, your contact record that's linked to your login. If you do have a notary signature selected on the G702, it'll then include a signature on this line here with the date. It'll populate the state based on your contact record. And then this is the image of the electronic notary stamp that would have been uploaded to the document. If you're needing to include or not use a G702, but a G703, then you can go in and underneath the contract information, you can come in here and just select use G732. And now everywhere on the system, it'll be the G732. They're basically very similar. It's just going to change around this section up here. And then a little bit of the information down here. Again, we're just following the AIA standard document for this. So the owner's blank because there was no owner specified on the project. And so I can go in, if I close out of here, I can go in, edit that job information, go to my contacts, and then select who is the owner. And again, now you're just searching through the entire database for the contacts. You can select your the owner, the contact for the owner. Now that owner is filled in right here. Now, when I go back here and print out my G732 document, it would then show the owner information.
Hey, Dan, I don't mean to interrupt you real quick. I just wanted to say, I forgot to mention, as you are watching this, if you have any questions or things you would like us to address, please type them in. There's a window in the webinar for Q&A. You can type in your questions, and when Dan finishes his demo, I'm going to go through all of the questions and have Dan answer them. If any of them seem like they're worth interrupting Dan, I may do that, but most likely all the questions will be answered at the end. But if you type them in as you think of them, that guarantees that I'll see them and we'll be able to answer them before we finish this webinar. Thank you. Go ahead, Dan.
So this was for the month of April. So to do the next month, you would again just click on add billing. This is going to be my second invoice, second application. This is going to be for May. And so down here, I'm going to put in that, we've done 50% of our production. And so I would just type in half of the amount here. And then also a little bit of the trucking's been completed. So I'll put in the amount that we're going to invoice for the trucking as well. Again, just hitting save. save and close. And now what this does is it bumps the one over. So it's always going to show you the most current to the left to the oldest to the right. And so this one has the 8,500, 7,500, the total amount. And then again, from this page right here, you can print all of your individual documents if you want. The G703 again. It's going to show you your previous, this period, total to date, balance to finish. And then again with the G702, and then also the current month's invoice would then also be able to get printed from here as well.
Real quick, Dan, can you enter a percentage instead of an amount? If you say had 50% completed, could you enter that 50% completion, or do you have to type in the 50% amount?
Currently on our first go through of this, we've made it a very manual, non-calculated process. So you physically have to type in the amounts, and then you'd have to physically type in the amount that you want to show up in here. We're already planning a phase 2 to this. And that is where you'll be able to put in percentages. And the system is also going to show you percentages. So for this project, based on your starting and ending dates, we would be able to tell you what percent of that job was produced for this period of time. Same thing, percentage wise for trucking. Some of the items we'll be able to do that for, some we won't. But again, the amount would then be, both the percentage and the amount would be able to be overridden manually. So, but we are looking at doing that in phase 2. So. And then again, you can just add your third one or the current month. Oops, forgot to put in my application date. And then I can fill in my, again, fill in the remaining amounts for this invoice for that specific payment. And then again, it just shifts everything over as you're going through here. Now, if you have to go back, if you submitted, this month's, and the contractor says, well, we don't agree, you have to go back and make changes. The system is set up again, it's very open, where it'll allow you to go in and come back here and say, actually, we only were supposed to bill them, we weren't supposed to bill them any trucking on this invoice. And so you would be able to go in, change that, reprint the invoices, and then come in here and modify the current one. And then resubmit that one. Oops. So it does allow you to go back and change previous billings. That way, if you need to make corrections and resubmit them, it's not going to hold you up on that.
Real quick, Dan, if you had had tax in your template for your schedule of values, would the tax be calculated automatically, or would it be manual like all of these others?
Currently, everything is manual on each of the billings. We're not, if you have tax listed here. So if I went back added a fourth line item for tax and said it was $2,500. Within each of the line items, it's not going to automatically compute that. Right now on the current system, we wouldn't know that this line is referring to tax. We would also then need to know the rate for the tax. And sometimes there's multiple taxing districts and stuff like that. And so on the current version and on phase 2, when it comes to if you're going to be line item tax, then that's something that would just have to be manually calculated and entered into the system.
Thank you.
Now, the other part with the schedule of values is if you, I'm going to go in here and start this one over. This job 1010 in Concrete Vision, we have our estimates have been brought into this system. And so it's showing us, you know, we have wall panels, columns, beams with all of our estimated information, our costs, material costs, trucking, labor. And then we've also created a revenue budget where it's showing us all of our totals for our revenue, broken down by the individual categories. You can then automatically fill in. So when I come in here and I create a schedule of value, when I say create, it's going to automatically populate all of my values based off my estimate. Now, how that's done is by using our categories for estimating. When you come in and you define your different categories for estimates, you have your materials, direct labor. You're also giving us a general ledger or cost code that can be set up for those different items. Then within the general ledger setup, within here for each one of those different items, you can then specify what is the default schedule of value based on the different items from your template. And so what the system will do when you create the schedule of value is it'll take all of your estimates that you have by each of your individual product codes, and it'll combine everything based on this column within the general ledger setup for schedule of values. And so we know what to populate into production, trucking, erecting, based on these different general ledger or costs. A lot of people refer to them as task codes or cost codes. And so that's what allowed it to come in and automatically populate these specific values. So if I were to go and look at that job again, look at 1010, oops. And on my estimate summary, it's showing 142,600. On the schedule of value, it's a little bit higher because it's also, this amount doesn't include overhead and margin, where the schedule of value would include the overhead and margin. And so that's why the amounts are slightly different. We were looking at the cost amount. This is going to be the revenue amount for your engineering services. The system would then allow you to go in and change these around if you need to. Again, you can delete the items that you don't need. If you needed to add something, so if you needed to break out your production, for production storage, and then I'm going to just quickly come over here and reorder these. And then do a 3-1 production shipped. And then I could say, you know, we're going to bill for half of it. So I would take that amount. And now I can split up and bill for production as soon as it's done versus when it's been shipped. And so you can come in here after the fact and change this all around. If you were going to lump your engineering in with when you're shipping it, you'd be able to add those two together. So it gives you the flexibility of changing everything around like that as well. And then again, you would just start with adding the different billings and things like that into the for this specific schedule of value. Okay, and with that, I guess I'll start going through some of the questions that anybody had, Brent.
All right. Thank you so much, Dan. I will start. We have two current questions that we haven't answered yet. First one, when you were on the 702 and 703 forms, who is allowed to select which names go on those? Can anybody put any name on those? Or do you have to be you logged in to select the name?
In this drop down, this
Yep.
is basically, sorry, go ahead.
Yep. I think that's the question.
Okay, in these drop downs are populated based on having a signature in the CRM module for an employee of the company. And then this one is based on having the notary signature. So if you have 5 employees that have a notary stamp uploaded, then their names would show up in this list. If you have 10 employees that have their digital signature uploaded, then those 10 employees would show up in this list.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'll wait to see if that was what the person asking was looking to get. I'll give them a chance to answer. The next question we have, which is the final question. Again, now is a great time if you have other questions about this. Down in the bottom of your screen, there should be a little tab called Q&A. If you click that, you can type in a question that will pop up and we'll be able to answer that during this webinar. The last question I have currently live is, now the more are popping in. Could you review how the change order process ties into the schedule of values? i.e., do you have to use the change order process inside of CV for it to work?
Again, like with the dollar amounts and the percentages on this initial phase 1, everything is manual. And so if this job was started, you get all the way to the end, and now you're going to add a change order to it, you would be able to just come into here, change order 1, $1,000. Add that, and then that's going to come in here and you know, give you that additional line item. Again, here, by checking the box change order over here, that's what gives us a way to segregate these down to here into a different line item. And then you can just create an additional billing or you could add it to one of your existing billings to bill it. Again, on this first pass through, we tried to make it relatively, we made it relatively easy, but also a manual process where we're not automatically calculating everything. There's issues that we have to look into, working with a few people on rounding issues and things like that if we're trying to auto-populate based on budgets and stuff. So, and then from here, again, you could either add it to this invoice, or you could create a separate invoice altogether, just for the change order. So I would do invoice 4. This one I'm just going to put everything on 6/30. And then just type in my change order amount for 6/30. And then I have just a single invoice, number 4, for that change order amount.
Okay.
And then again, you can print out the invoice, all the same documents specific to that change order. So
Okay.
again, it is a manual process at the moment. So it doesn't link into the change order process that we have underneath the jobs module.
I'm going to skip down to this other change order question. Can a negative number be entered in the statement of value for schedule values, such as for a deductive change order?
Yes. So you can put in a positive or a negative. And then again, you know, depending upon how you do the invoice, you wouldn't really necessarily send a negative invoice. You could send a negative invoice or something, but yes, it does allow you to put in a negative amount for your change orders. So the amount columns, it can be positive or negative.
All right. I'm going to just go to the top of the list. Here come all the questions. All right. What is the easiest way for project managers to see schedule of values and progress without giving permissions to access the accounting area?
Currently, the schedule of values are only on this one page. And so you would have to come to this page to view them. You know, that's going to be one of the things that we're you know, going to be working with people on, trying to get feedback on where else possibly would we have to show this information. But for the time being, it is on just the single screen. And so people would just have to come into here, and then they'd be able to view all of the schedule of values.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Next question. Can the invoice be modified? Specifically, can the SOV be removed?
This invoice here, yeah, this could be a customized document for anybody. This is just a template document that we created. And so just like with our quote, delivery, bill of lading ticket and things like that, this is a document that can be tweaked to whatever format that, you know, somebody would request.
Would that be a customization charge, or
Currently today, yes, it would be. So
okay, thank you. All right. And if that is something you're interested in, always connect with me, Brent Willson, and I can get a customization proposal put together for you and get that ready to be signed for custom coding. If the job has retainage and we now want to bill, how do we handle this?
I knew that question was going to come up. And so if I go to this other job right here, if I come in here, I'm going to add a billing. We'll say it's for this month. And this job has 10% retainage on it. And so when I come in here and I type in my different amounts, it's going to automatically remove that, retainage on here. Oops. And so this is going to show you how much you have for the retainage. We're actually working on it right now. This is the one final component that we did not get finished before the demo today, is creating an actual specific billing dealing with retainage only. If you were to look at the current screen right now, there's no way to modify this amount. And so we're going to create a specific billing only for the retainage amount, where you'd be able to go in and basically put in a negative value into the retainage column, and then that would move that over onto an invoice for billing it. So we're hoping to have that finished up towards the end of next week, and then that will be automatically pushed out onto all of the systems in the first part of July.
Excellent. And we have one more question left. So if you have other questions, now would be a great time to type them in, just so that we don't end and you didn't get a chance to ask your question. And I think the last one is pretty similar to the one that was asked before. Can the actual invoice be a summary of dollars instead of the details? Our invoicing can be very involved.
Yes. We can, initially we didn't have it this broken out. Initially, it was basically just an invoice with this $1 amount down here. And so that's something that we were going to add back into the system, where do you want a detailed invoice or basically just a summary invoice where it just shows a single amount due with none of this detail up above.
Okay, so at some point that will not be a customization. That will be an
That'll just
option
be an
when
option
you
to
are
print the
printing your
summary.
invoice.
Yes.
Okay,
So
thank you. All right. This is the last chance for questions. Like I said, thank you so much, Dan, for taking the time out of your week to show us all of these new features for schedule of values and project invoicing. I think this is a great tool, and by the number of people here, it's clearly something a lot of people are excited about. So we do have one more. All right. I have one more question for you. Interested in contract value, change order value invoice, just not the line item detail.
Okay. So when we're
was-
printing the invoice, it would be more of wanting something more, like this type of information down here, not just all this other information up above or something like that. Yeah, that does make more sense than just having just a single amount. So what people are referring to then is they
They've
basically
responded
want,
that that's exactly what they were asking. and
okay,
looking
so
for. that's
basically they
perfect.
just want to take this part
And get rid
off
of it.
and have this stuff down here. Okay. Yeah, that's a very simple change actually. So and then we can just create a detail versus
Summary.
more of a summary invoice. So
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Dan. I'm going to now go back to sharing the PowerPoint. And again, thank you everyone for showing up. We're so grateful to have such excitement and interest in the new features that we're rolling out in these webinars.